are you creating with?
We might have to create a little bit. Well, that's kind of what we're finding out today. Okay, hello everyone. Let's get started. Okay. So unit 7. Okay. Today we are going to start unit 7. And I think based on based on like the speed that I was moving in the last session, I think maybe like we'll need like 3 sessions to like go over them. Like there is an assignment homework which is based on unit 6 and unit 7. And I've said, like, I just updated the date. It will be due next Tuesday night. We'll see. I'll probably give you like if we finish like time finish at some point, maybe on Friday. I'll give you like either some type of some amount of like a class time, or like one session like maybe on Monday, to also work on the homework, and if you have like any questions, I can answer it. But for now, we are going to move on through this lecture and like do those practices and work with them, get to know about the list, and hopefully when we complete them, we'll move on to the next unit, which is going to be a last unit, and also a very important part of this course, which is object-oriented programming, talking about the classes and objects. Okay, let's get started. Let me find the lecture. Okay. Ready? Yes. Okay, great. Let's get started. So, today we are kind of like moving forward with this course to a very important, like taking an important step. Up to this session, what we like learned was to using variables, and like every variable only like it stores one data point. All right. So when you say like a day, like a variable, like a name, or any other type of variable you create, they only store one data point. But we want to move forward because we don't like work with one data point. We work with like a lots of data points, and maybe a list of data points, like a list of students names, list of students information. So for that, we want to like move forward and like get to know how we can actually work with a list of like a few sets of information. Once we learn like how to store information about like a set of things, and practice with them through the list, then we move forward, like get to know about the classes and objects and how we can use them. And that's when we actually start talking about how that, like the part that you've learned before this course, which was like database and store information in the database, how you connect that to like applications, is like load the information into applications and then use that information. So this sets the step to work with this like a set of information, and then we move forward with like how to actually like work with information and like use them to inside like applications. So we want to work with like how to like a list of as a data storage, you store data inside the list, a set of like values instead of just one value when we like use variables. Okay, so a list looks like this when you declare it. Okay, so when you want to like define a list, first of all, like you can use it to store like inform elements of the same type, It could be an integer, it could be a string, it could be double, or it could be a type of class. That's one thing that we'll talk about in the next unit. So what is a data type? Let's say like you are storing list of like names, list of students' addresses. The type data type that like of an address is a string. So you will specify the data type of that list as a string. List of like that list would be like addresses, the list of students' addresses. So when you create a list, you specify the data type inside like the signs and say, okay, it's a list of a string, and then identify it's the name of the list that you're assigning. It's like similarly to the like a name that you assign to a variable, but this time you're assigning a name to the list. Equals and then new and list again. So this part is repeated here. This part is repeated here as well. And then parentheses and then semicolon because it's like a statement. There's very good like features, characteristics about the list that helps you like applications. First, dynamic size. What does dynamic size mean? Means that like you don't have to set a size for that list. That's how you do maybe like with tables in a database. You don't know what is going to be like how many data you're going to store. You don't set a size to that table. The same way here, you don't set a size. There are some things like that, like similar to list, but you have to set a size for them. The good thing about list is that you don't set a size and you can add or store information, data inside the list as much as you want. It should be from the same data type, and then you can like add or remove data to a list very easily. Add it, remove it, find it, like check its like the list data about like values and so on. Which is why it allows you to like manipulate the data inside the list very like easily. Okay. So that's why we're going to like talk about the list before moving on to the next unit. So one thing is like, how do we declare a list? There are two ways to declare a list. Depends on if you already know the values of a list. Okay. If you don't know the values of a list that you're creating, let's say a student's name, I don't know them, I'm going to get them and store them. This is how we declare them. So we're just like creating the list. Again, list and then the data type and name for the list equals new list type. And then parentheses and semicolon. If you already know the values that you want to store in the list, like the auto type, you remember in practice with it that we said there are 4 types of auto types. People can rent it. We would calculate that like the rental like price. We had 4 data types, 4 like auto types: economy, intermediate, like full size, special data. So we already know like different types. Now we want to store it in a list so we can use those like auto types. If in that case, then at the end, when you're declaring it, like either you add the parentheses here or not, that's optional. But then you add the brackets, and inside the brackets, you declare the values, the initial value, separated with a comma. Separated with a comma. So you specify like the variables that like values that you know. For example, if you create a list for like weekdays, you already know Monday, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, like, okay. So you just like create the list and also like declare like its initial values. Okay. So that's the difference. If you already know the values, like you want to like specify the values inside the brackets. If you don't know, you're just creating the list. Then you can like I'll talk about how we can add values to the list and storing like additional data. Okay. So how about this? Let's try it. Okay. So list, once you type the list, this shows up and then you can use it. Okay. We want to create a list of names. How do we name this? there is a common practice how to name lists. The name of the list is usually like the plural version of like members of that list. So if you're storing like each like inside the list is like a student's name, so it's a list of names. So the plural version. So in this case, it's on a string, and I'm like naming it as names. Okay. It's just a practice. You can you can choose a different name for the like the list, but usually just like whatever you're storing in that list, the flow version, you're using it to name that list. And then new, again, you see this time it like creates the list and like adds that string, so you can enter and it adds that part here. Here, this is a statement. So it's a statement. We are like adding the statement inside the method, and it like it should like because we don't know its initial values, so we need to add the parentheses and then like and that's like the statement, then end the statement. Okay, good. Any question? So don't forget to add these like parentheses, like open and close at the end when you're declaring like or defining the list. This data type is the data type of the values that you're going to store inside the list. This is the name that you've chosen for the list, and this is just like automatically you just need to add it. Like technically, it is initializing the list. Okay. We'll get to know a little bit more about this in the next unit, but for now, just type it and like that's about it. Okay. Sometimes you already know the initial value of a list that like list of things that you have. And like in this case, we have like list of auto types and we want to create a list and then store that like in data inside that list. So again, list. Inside that, we specify the data type. It's a string. The auto types are type of a string. So I will declare it as a string. Each one of these is one auto type. Okay, the auto type is economy. So I use auto types as the name of the list. The auto types. It follows the same like naming convention that you use for variables, right? So it starts with a lowercase, and then like if you have multiple like variable like name like words, then the first character is capitalized. Again, new list a string. This time, we already know that like its value, so we don't have it's optional to add the parentheses or not. I'm gonna like ignore that part and like move with adding the like brackets. And inside that, I need to add, okay, you don't have to add the enter, right? So you can just type it here or like there. It's your choice. Just in one line or just like enter to add this after that line. Then add the values that you want to store initially in the list. So I have economy. Okay. I want to separate them with a comma. Okay. Economy, intermediate, full size, and then specialty sports. Okay. And it's an statement, so it should end the semicolon. Okay. I just want to go with that. So that's not it. Okay. So If you already know the values, you want to specify them, you use this version. If you don't know the initial value, use this to declare like the list. Okay. So that's how we declare the list. That's about like defining the list. Okay. Um, Now just another example of that, like the one that we did here. Okay. Um, Lists like in like kind of like have like some things that they defined, like basically in the core like C# application, there are some things that have been defined for lists and you can just use them. There are some methods that have been defined and you can just like use them for different purposes. Some of the like most common ones is like the add method as well as the count. Add method allows you to add a value to the list. Okay. So how do you do that? Type the name of the list, dot, add, and inside the parentheses, you type like you like add the value that you're passed and like you want to store inside like the list. An example of it would be like this, like names that add, and then inside that, like we want to add another name, so we want to put it inside like a quotation. You're adding one item at a time. So it just gets one item, you can pass it and it will save it. Names that count, like pay attention that this is like a capital count. It will, if you type that, it will return the size of the list. Okay, it will give you the size of the list. And then how do you access to different values in a list? You type the list name, and then the braces inside that you indicate the index. Okay, you want to use the index to check every like member of the list. Okay, what's an index? Like let's say the 0, 1, 2, 3. That's how you can like check a particular value inside the list. You probably have seen this version. It's like if data frames or anything that you work with R programming or like a Python, probably like some like seen something like this. And like for example, if you type this, it will give you the value that is stored in the like a very first like place inside the like it is like inside the list. It is stored from 0. Okay, so you want to access like the very first one, you want to specify 0 that starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Um, okay. So let's see an example. So if we want to add a value to the like to one of the lists, let's say we already know their value, okay? We can just like specify that inside like by adding like using the list name dot add and inside the parentheses like you pass the value, okay? So in this case, okay, names. Okay, these are the things that every list has. I don't want, like, we don't want to spend that much time at this point about them, but there's so many things that you can do with a list. I will use the add one. Okay, what's add? Okay, if you like from now on, if you might have to use these things frequently, so every time you use them, spend just a second to check this. It tells you what is that thing that you're using. In this case, the one that I'm using add, what does it look like? It says void list string dot add, and then inside the parentheses a string item. What is it like similar to? It looks like a method, right? It's a method in internally defined to be used for lists. First of all, it says void. That means like this method doesn't return anything. but it has one parameter. That means like you only pass information to that method. Okay, so it doesn't return you anything, but you can pass information to it. And what it does, it has only one string, one parameter. So that means you can only pass one parameter or one data point. And its data type is always going to be similar to the data type of the list. Okay, so that's why I say names that add. In this case, I just want to like have like Lisa. Okay, so it's a statement. You can see that like because the method is void, it doesn't return anything. So we didn't put it inside like we didn't have any variable to store. It's just like a one statement calling a method and passing the information to the method. Okay. We can do this again, names dot add. And what's the other name? We had John. Um, we can do the same thing for the other list. The fact that we add initial values to it, that doesn't mean that we cannot add more values. It just means that like we already know some of the values or all the values of that list. If you want, you can add more. How can you add more? The same way. You can type the name of like basically in the list name, and then dot add, and then add additional like values to the list. In this case, I want to add like others. We can use like the like count to get the size of the list. Okay. So let me first show you how it looks like. Names dot count. Okay. So what do you see here? Count, get the number of elements contained in that list. And also you see that get. It says by using that, you're getting something. If you're getting a value and you need to check that value, you can store it in a variable. If you will need it some like at a point, okay? Or okay, let's say I want to like see since it will return me something, maybe I wanted like a story somewhere. If in that case, then you might need a variable to say, let's say int names. I will call this names size. Okay. It's the size of that list. And for that, you can just say names dot count. So you're getting a value. If you're getting a value, then you want to store it somewhere if you need it for some reason. This is just a practice. We just see an example of the like this. And like int like basically you can get the value like the size of the list and then store it in a variable. You can check the like size of the list by just saying names.count. It will return it and then you can check it. Okay. Any question? Okay. So far we only had one, like usually work with variables and each variable stores only one piece of data. But now we are working with list and like set of information, set of data. In order to check the values or like access to a value, we have to iterate through the list. We have to go through the list check their values, and like maybe like if you're looking for a variable like a particular data point, or if you want to do something with the like the values in the list, you have to go through them using a list, using a loop. Okay, so one loop that we can use, and we talked about before, is like a while loop. So what we do is to say, okay, I'm gonna create a counter, like set the 0, and say while counter is less than the size of the list. Because I want to check every member of the list to say while the counter is less than the size of the list, console write line, print inside the like brackets, names, and then I said like that's how like you specify, like using an index, you specify part like what is the particular value in the list. Okay, so names, braces, and then like here you have like counter. First, counter is 0. It says 0 is name count. The size of the list is 2 because we added two like values to the list, right? So the size is 2, counter is 0. So first it prints names and then name 0. What is like the 0? The first, like very first one. And then here counter plus plus, you're adding 1 to the counter, to the index that you're using. It goes and says 1 is still less than 2. So again, go here and then names and then 1. So it prints out, then again counter plus plus, the counter is 2, comes here 2, and not less than 2, so like it ends the loop. Okay. So this is how we can use an index to iterate through the list. First, like we cannot declare it inside the wall, right? So we want to declare it first and then go inside the loop and like one at a time, check the values that is stored in the list. Okay. Any question? Let's try it. Okay. So we want to like iterate through that list and like print out like every names in that list. First, I use an index. You can name this anything you want. It could be just an index. It could be I. It could be like counter. It's just like a you're just iterating through the list with that. So I will just call it counter. And I need to set the value to 0. I want to specify where it should start. So I will set the value to 0. Okay. I know that like the list starts storing values from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So I will set like the initial value of the counter to 0 and say, okay, start from there. And inside the loop, first, the condition is that counter is less than names dot count. So here, when you type it, you know that you will get the size of the list. You will get it, and then it checks like the counter is less than that value every time for like inside the loop. So you didn't like here, you don't need to like use the name list or anything. This was just like for practice to just know if you want to like store that information, that's how like you get it. But as much as like you can type this like names that count, it just always returns the value like the size of the list, and you can use that value. Then we want to like what should happen? We want to like uh print we want to print like the list, every member of the list, like everything that is stored inside the list. So for that, we just treat it like a variable, like you know how we would print out like a variable, adding a dollar sign and like put that variable inside the brackets. Here, inside the brackets, this time, first you specify the name of the like a name of the list, in this case names, and then these, and you see it also tells you int index. So inside that should be an index. If you like place a number, it only like returns, if I place it 0, okay, if I place 0 here, it only prints like the very first one stored in the list. But I want to iterate through it. I want to like print every one of like the members in the list. That's why I use the counter. I use the counter. So if I don't add one value, like increase the value of counter, it will stay in the loop, right? I want to add like every time I print out, I want to like move forward one at a time. That's why I need to use the counter plus plus to just add one value, counter plus plus. So we can like move forward through the list. Let me add this console.read key here so we can run console.read key. Okay. Let's add it and run the program and see what we get in the output. Okay. It prints out every like just goes through the list and prints out like their values. I can also like add a breaking point. This helps me to debug my code. I want to show you exactly what happens at every step. Okay, so I added a breaking point here, and then I print out. Okay, so we are here. What is the value of counter here? Counter is for now is 0. Okay, so 0. I move forward. Now it should have been printed out. Okay, because it moved on. So the first one was printed out. Now, one more. Now the value of counter is 1. It added 1 to the counter and moved like 1, like a next line of code, which says it's like the end of the while. So it's gonna go back to check the condition again. Okay. See, now it goes back to check the condition again. It says the like you see names.count is 2, but the counter is 1. So it is still needs to stay inside the loop. See, just comes back again, and then again one at a time, and prints out the next one. Okay, prints out the next one. And then if I try it now, counter is 2. So again, checks like the value, whether it exists, and then moves out because now like counter is equal to the names that count. I just noticed that like this was Lisa, not Lisa. Okay. Okay. So does that make sense how this works? We use an index to like check the values that we've stored inside the list one at a time using the counter. And like this way, that's how we can access to a particular value inside the list. Well, I'm gonna comment this part because it's not part of the program. How about the next one? How about you work on the next one? Okay. First, okay. So that allows you to go through a list to search for a particular value. Okay. you just need to use like the like for example, you're looking for like a if the name is Bob, then like you want to check whether like one like a like something that you're looking for it exists inside the list. Okay, you say okay, while I is less than name so count if the name I equals to Bob. So you're checking every one with that value, every one of the members of the list with that value. And if it's equal, then like you will found it and like break out of the Bob because like maybe there was like one that you're looking for. We'll work on this practice just in like a few, like we'll have a few slides and then we'll have like further discussions in this type of access to the like to the list members. Okay, so I want to give you like 2, 3 minutes to work on this. For the other list, I want you to print like create this formatted output. That this time it says add like the number and then like line and then like name of the like the auto type. So see how you can create this like output based on this format. I can give you a hint. Like how do you create this number? You can still use the counter, right? You're like each while you're iterating through the list, you can use the same counter to like print out these numbers. So first, what do we need? We need like we want to like iterate through the list. So we are going to use a loop. For that loop, we need like a counter, like that like helps us to like go through the list. Either you can like create a new variable here. Let's say you want to like say counter 2, okay, and then again set to 0. You're going to use and use it as a counter to go through the list. Or in this case, since I already have I have created a new like a variable as a counter, And like after this loop, I won't be needing it anymore because it's just a very temporary variable that like you're going through the list and like trying to check the values. And after that loop, you're not going to use it. So why not just using it again? How do we use it again? We want to make sure that reset the value before we use it again. So I'm going to reset the value. I'm not going to declare, I already declared it. So I will just reset the value and then again, I use it inside the loop. So counter less than auto types dot count. Okay. First, reset the value. Then use it in that loop. Now, we want to just like print out, want to print out like the members of the list. And also, okay, so what was the format? The format is like an index and like a counter, and then a line, and then economy, or like the auto type. So how do I create that like output? I wanted like a specified number, right? So the counter is kind of like that number iterating it. So why not using the same counter, the value? So counter, it starts from 1. So I just need to like say counter plus 1, right? So it started like kind of thinking about these things to say if you're using like some variables, it like think like can I use it in different ways? You're not changing the value of counter. Remember, this is not changing the value of counter. Like temporarily get the counter's value and you are adding 1 to that value. And then I say, okay, this was one part of the string. Okay, this is not minus, it's just like part of the string. If it like just like this. And then the auto type. And inside the like brackets, you indicate the index, which we are using the counter to go through like the list and like iterate through the list. Okay. So yeah, like because we're working with variables and like the list is like a some type of like something similar, you should put it inside like the brackets in it when we are creating the string. And that would tell us counter is 0, initially 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, and then auto type 0. So it's economy. So 1 and like dashes and then like auto like economy. But we are not done yet because we want to like use like counter, go through every one of the like list members. So like we want to like move forward with the counter. Should remember to add to the value of counter so we can move forward through the list. Okay, move forward through the list. Okay, if I run this, you can see that it prints out. Like add 1 to the counter and prints out. We like here we don't change initially we don't change the counter's value. We just like get the value of the counter and then add 1 to it and then use it in the like in creating that string. Okay. Okay. Any question? Everything clear? Any question? I'm not moving fast. No? Good? Okay, great. Why did I like I didn't set like less equal. I just said less. Should I like what would happen if I set less equal than like this, like the size of the list?
Let's go down with the last one.
One thing you want to pay attention is that the list, when you store it, it starts from zero. Like, see, it starts when you have a list, it starts with an index of zero and it stores the information. 0, 1, 2. When you get like names or like the any type of list that count, it just counts it. So it returns like 3. The difference is that when you index like each way through the list, you should always remember that it starts from 0. But the count is just counting them and says 1, 2, 3. So that's it. That's why we use like counter less than the auto type or like the list name that count. Okay, so every time it says first, it says auto type 0 when counter is 0. Okay, counter is set to 0, so it checks auto type 0. In the next iteration, counter is set to 1. And then it says, okay, print out types 1. Okay. And then again, as much as like the size of the list is, then again, counter, like it becomes 2, 3, and so on. And then like this index changes. And that's how you can like iterate through a list. Good? Okay. Okay. So that would be like the way that you can like print out like based on this formatted output. Okay. So far we learned about one loop, while loop, or like we talk about while loop. But now that we are working with lists, there is a particular like a loop version that is designed for loops, and it makes it much easier to go through the loops. It's called foreach. Okay, so it uses like you're using like you can use foreach to go through the like a list and iterate through the list. But what is the difference? Okay, so the difference is that while loop uses an index. You're using an index to iterate through a loop. But foreach uses a variable. So how does that work? Foreach type identifier in an expression. So the type is like the data type of the list. Identifier is a variable, is one variable in the list, whatever the list name is. Okay. So read it this way. For each name in names, for each age in ages, for each student in a student. Okay, so that's how it says. It says for each one of these, okay, for each one of these inside what? Inside that list. For each auto type in auto types. And then inside the like when you're like working with the list, you're just using the variable. There is no index. So you're using the variable and like checking that variable. Okay. So if you want to like check like the same way, you loop through the names list and you want to print out the names, you're saying for each. So a string name of the variable. How do you like specify the name of the variable? You can name anything you want. But like a practice, common practice is that you use a similar version of the list. So if the list is names, the variable that you use is name. If the variable is like a student, like the name of the variable you choose is a student. for each student in students, for each name in names, for each day in weekdays, like something like that, right? So the singular version is like the name that you choose. This could be I, it could be any other name, but just like to kind of make it simpler to understand for people to look at it, usually they go with that format. Okay, so for each name in names, like print out the name. So no longer using an index version, you're not checking the list itself, you're checking the variable. You're checking the variable. Now let's see how this works if I use like a foreach. Instead of the auto types, every time it says first, it says name. Okay, in the first iteration, okay, it says name equal to, let's say, econ. In the second iteration, again, name is enter. In the third iteration, name is equal to full size. Okay. So every time it gets the value of the the place in that list, it stores it in that variable, then you can use the variable for like any comparisons or anything you want to do. This is a little bit better because indexes kind of can make things like a little bit like messy, complicated. But this time, because like what do we have a list? It's a list of variables, right? Instead of one variable, you have list of variables. Instead of one name, you have list of names. So every one of the members of that list is kind of one variable. That's why it uses a variable to say, hey, for each name in names. And now you use that name to say, is it equal to economy, or is name equal to some like a John or anything, right? So you use one variable and use that for any other purposes that you're iterating through that list. So with that, again, they're both doing this very same thing. Like I've done this. What I do here is like iterating through the list and printing it out. So I'm gonna use this time for each. Okay. See the for each loop, and then like parentheses. I want to keep track of time. For each, the first thing I specify is the data type. In this case, it's a string. A variable name. I can use any other name I want. Since I'm using like I'm iterating through the named list, I will use name in names. Okay, in and then the name of the list that you want to like loop through, like iterate through that list. Now, you have to add this. You have to add the like a bracket and then a statement. Like what is the purpose that you want to iterate through it? In this case, I wanted to like only like print out the values. Okay, console, the right line, and then again, okay. Name is a variable. If I want to print it out, I need to put it inside like brackets and say name. You see, the difference is that now I'm using the variable. Every time I get the value from the list is stored in the variable, then I use the variable for like the reason that I'm like iterating through the list. So this part is equal exactly to this part. The difference is that here you use it like a counter. You need to iterate through it like using like a counter or like an index counter. Here, just like use a variable and like say for each name in names, let's say like compare it or like find check it or like update it or any other thing. The first practice we're doing is a little bit messy in terms of like we don't have that kind of an organization that you always do with the program. So just keep that in mind. When we move on to like a complete practice, then again, we are going back to like organizing the code and like doing that here. Great. I'll stop here. We'll continue this next session. Thank you.